Okay, everyone, it's officially 12 o'clock. This is Mac, program coordinator on the safety and well-being team. And we're excited because today we got to do our webinar as kind of a way to not just reach our safety and well-being champions, but our weight loss challenge participants too. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm excited to introduce you all to Rebecca Mills. She is a co-worker on our team that started not too long ago. I think it's only been about 3 to 4 months. And we're really excited because she is a graduate of the NNU counseling program. So she has her master's in clinical counseling with an emphasis in grief, trauma, and crisis. She's a mom to a teenage son, and he's pretty amazing. I've got to meet him on a few Teams calls, and he's pretty cool. She also has two kitty fur babies, Theo and Sega, and a beta fish, Cameron. So pretty diverse animal kingdom over there. And one of the cool things that I learned about Rebecca from our first meeting is that she's an empath, and I had no idea what that really meant until she explained it to me. And an empath is really a person who can absorb the world's joys and stresses like emotional sponges. So the term empath comes from the word empathy, which of course is that ability to understand experiences and feelings of others outside of our own perspective. And they can't help but take in the surrounding emotions and energies of others, whether they're good, bad, or something in between. And so just knowing that, I think she's the perfect person to lead this webinar for us all today in regards to healthy transitions. And Rebecca, excited to have you on here to support us through this transition from summer into the fall, crazy busy months. So thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much for having me. And what an introduction. Thank you so much, Mac.
Yeah.
I told Mac, I said, if you add the empath piece, that's totally fine. I didn't really, she's like, give me some tips or some fun facts about you. And she goes, I really like the empath thing. I'm like, oh, I just kind of think that of myself just as a natural thing. So I was just like, oh, I guess yeah, I guess so. Throw that in there. Why not? So, with that said, can you see my screen, Mac?
I sure can. And then if
Okay.
everybody can mute themselves while Rebecca gives her presentation, then we'll prevent any of that background noise coming through. And at the end, we can take some questions. And at the end, too, I'll be tagging this all together as to how this relates to weight loss, too. So stay tuned till the end.
Yes, definitely. So let's just jump right in and start talking about transitions, right? Transitions are so difficult sometimes, but they can also be really easy. But it's going to take a little bit of practice, right? So collectively, we're all starting to go into a transition. As families go back into the school year and kids go back into school, and people are going from sometimes a work schedule that's at home to a hybrid schedule, or sometimes all the way out into the work field again. So let's talk about that. So transitions can bring anxiety of what's to come, fear of the unknown, and a whole bag of other emotions. But these tips, I hope, help. And with a positive mindset, the transitions can become easier. And I'm a firm believer in that. So, tip number one, no matter what, everything always works out. I tell my son Jackson this all the time, and he's a good reminder for me as well. But I really believe this. It may not work out right away, but a difficult situation always works out the way it's supposed to. I lead with this in mind. Always am I leading with this in mind. And I also allow time to do her magical work because that also plays a factor. So, the other thing, tip number two, is allow you and your child to experience stress or any emotion that comes along with a transition. When parents acknowledge what they're feeling and thinking, and they create a platform for their kids to acknowledge what they're thinking and feeling, that starts to build the resiliency foundation. And we'll talk about that. So, tip 3, parents, you will not always have the answer to the problem. I run into this, I think, more now as a teenage years, than I did before. But as parents, we put so much pressure on ourselves to know the answer, and it's okay to not know the answer. I don't always know the answer. I find myself in uncharting uncharted parenting territory, and I let Jackson know that. I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know the answer to this, but you know what? We'll figure it out together." And so this kind of sets your child up for helping you and allows them to explore how to navigate the unknown because they're going to encounter that as well. Tip 4.
Hey, Rebecca.
Yeah,
Rebecca, quick question. Are you are you trying to move your screen on your end, or are you still on the transition slide?
I'm still on the transition slide.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thanks. There was just a
Yeah.
question in the chat box about that, so I wanted to confirm.
Oh, yeah, no, we're still on the transition slide.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Tip 4, give a tremendous amount of grace to you and your child. Your child is literally learning in the middle of a long learning curve, not just for this school year, but for the next 18 plus school years. A new school brings new classroom rules, making new friends, being present to learn, tuning out loud noises in the classroom. The list is long, but the point is that they're learning as they go and they need the grace to make mistakes, find their resiliency in their mistakes, and show themselves they are capable of learning from their mistakes. Tip 5. So I have this adorable great nephew. He's 5. And the other day he was in the car with me and he goes, "How do I get big and strong like Jack?" And I was like, "Wow." My Jackson was like, "Mom, this is like, what are you going to say?" And I'm like, and I said, "Well, let's listen to this for a second." And I said, "Well, you have to get lots of sleep, lots of playing outside, food, water, lots of giggles, tears, learning moments. And oh, yeah, you've got to make new friends and learn to be kind and helpful." And his response was, "So basically, it's everything I'm doing now." And I'm like, "Yes, absolutely. You're so smart at 5. Yes." And so as adults, don't we find ourselves in that same arena? Like, how am I going to get big and strong in this moment, right? Sometimes we have to realize that we might be missing sleep. We might be missing some exercise that maybe we need to do. We might be skipping our meals and we might be skipping our water. And those are, for me, moments where I'm like, those are my basics. Let's go back to those basics. So just to feed into to that. So it's not just these little tips, right, that set us up for success. It's the simple things that we ignore that sets us up for success as well. So those basics, sleep, it sets us up for active present success. Water keeps for me, keeps headaches away, prevents migraines from happening, and allows my body to flush out toxins. Exercise stimulates the body to produce endorphins, those happy chemicals, and serotonin, those mood enhancers. Exercise also promotes neural growth, reduces inflammation in the body, promotes feelings of calm and well being, and it gives you a break from the negative thoughts that can feed depression. And it helps build your resiliency in face of challenges. So I always like to push the fruits, the vegetables, the whole grains, the proteins that don't have to come from meat. They can come from tofu and beans and help make your insides feel good and promote your body's ability to fight infections and to stay resilient. And one of the other things that I'm going to touch on is a village. And I don't know if it's this necessarily just applies to parents, but for individuals as well. But build a village for yourself. As a single parent, that village for me was tapping into teachers, counselors, school counselors, my personal counselor, principals, and they helped me raise Jack, and they're continuing to help me raise Jack, because we all need help, even adults. We all don't have the answers. And so the village that we make helps build our abilities to do better in our transitions, helps build our resiliency, and it also helps build our composure through these challenges, through transitions. So let's see if I can do this right. That brings us to resiliency. And I'm hoping my presentation is not letting you go to the resiliency side. Any suggestions, Mac?
Um, you don't see the little arrow. Sometimes depending on your internet connection, if you're in presenter mode, it takes it a minute. Does it look like it's doing anything on your end?
No, no. And I tested it too before I got on and it was working fine and now it's not.
Okay. You might have to just unshare and then try resharing. That might have to be the route you go.
Try that real quick. Hmm.
We see. Um,
That's not working either.
mm-mm. Can
Oh,
you,
let me try one more thing.
okay.
There we go.
Oh,
Did it work?
beautiful. Yes.
Yay! So, resiliency, we all have it, right? I like to believe we do. So, first, what is resiliency? It's that process of being able to adapt well and bounce back quickly in times of stress. So, how do we build resiliency? There are five main pillars of resiliency: self aware, and that's your ability to know your strengths, your weaknesses, what motivates you, the emotions you feel. It also allows you to understand others and how they perceive you and your ability to filter feedback. So sometimes the feedback we get is good, but sometimes that feedback really has nothing to do with us, but it has to do with the other person. So part of our self awareness is knowing when that feedback's meant for us and when it's meant maybe for them. Mindfulness, that is a second pillar. Active attention in the present as you observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment. That's what mindfulness is, without judgment. So just observing what you're feeling and not putting a judgment on top of that. Am I allowed to feel this way? Sure. But then what are we going to do with that? Self care. That's our third pillar. That's our ability to function in the world while meeting multiple challenges through our own active engagement. So, if we stop and think about self care, we're thinking about what are we going to do to fill up ourselves in order to fill up others. And so that self care can look vastly different for everybody. For me, it's cooking, it's being with my family, engaging with Jackson. It's there's a long list of my self care, but the important thing is that you're doing it. The fourth is positive relationships, connecting with those who help and encourage you to maintain boundaries, who accept your no's, who encourage you to have the best life possible, and who bring you joy. And the fifth pillar, this one's my favorite, is your purpose. Knowing you belong in this world and embrace the capacity to serve for something that is bigger than yourself. So for me, that didn't really happen really for like until like 15 years ago. I didn't really know my life purpose. Um, I started counseling. I started my counseling program, and then I became a mom. And I always knew that part of my life purpose was being a parent, but I didn't really realize the counseling was my life purpose. And now that I am uh, doing the counseling piece, it more is more than just uh, a career for me. It's serving other people and I love serving people. So that to me was part of my pillar of building my resiliency. The other thing is, so we've identified, how to build our pillars, to stand up our pillars of resiliency and strengthen it. But how do we build our foundation? And so I found this great website that was called positivepsychology.com. And it has this resiliency building worksheet. And some of the example questions that I came across that could help identify on a deeper level and help you identify, your pillars and how to build into those pillars. Some of the questions they had were, where do you feel stress? That's part of your self-aware. What are some activities you could do to help you relax? That's your mindfulness. And some of the things they came across that I came across and that they mentioned was holding something comforting, smelling lavender, um, l- holding a puppy or a kitten, listening to music, drinking tea, maybe decaf for some of us. Um, and then also, what self care do you do to help rejuvenate your spirit and your energy? Um, that's also part of your building positive relationship with yourself. That cooking, hiking, gardening, those are some of my things. And then also, um, do you do you know your life purpose? Um, if not, can you identify your passions, your strengths, your values, and your talents? Those four things, being able to identify some of those four things, leads into knowing your life purpose, which then is also one of your pillars to build your resiliency. Some of the other things, just as something I came across just in my education for my counseling, uh, one of the professors had us do a Strength Finder 2.0. It was a book. It was like $20, and it's a book by Tom Rath. And inside the book, it has this envelope, and you go to the website, and inside the envelope is a code, and you type in the code, and it brings up this assessment, and it gives you instructions on how to do the assessment. And what the goal is of that assessment is to find your life purpose. What are your strengths that lend to helping you find your life purpose? So I just thought that was I thought, wow, $20 to help you, find all of that. I really actually enjoyed that assessment. And I thought it was pretty interesting. So it kind of reaffirmed for me at the time that I was on the right path for myself. So, and then I wanted to kind of talk about this picture for a minute. This is the lotus, and the lotus grows really well when it's planted in dirt and murky waters. That's how the lotus grows. And I've always found it to be a beautiful flower. And I've always kind of thought to myself, wow, isn't that the goal to, become beautiful and to serve ourselves well? Well, sometimes the only way to do that is through dirty, mucky experiences, right? And so it's not to discredit any dirty, mucky experiences that we have because it's just a building block to where we're going to be. And so I kind of wanted to highlight the lotus for everyone because I thought that it was just an important picture, something to think about. Let me see if this works again, Mac. It takes me to my last slide, and it's not.
Of course it's not. That's how technology likes to work, right?
Yes, and okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to see if I can do my magic one more time here. Yay! Okay.
Look at that. Perfect.
Um, this last one, composure during transitions. I'm not going to lie. As a parent, I struggle with this sometimes. I struggle less with it because I practice this now, what I'm going to talk about, but I'm still a work in progress, right? So when your child's behavior triggers you, science tells us There's a strong correlation between how parents regulate their emotions to how the child regulates their emotions. And the best way to foster emotional regulation and to build resiliency in our kids is for the parent to model those skills. So, how do we gain better composure to help ourselves, which helps our child? One is know your triggers. Write down anything you struggle with that doesn't keep you regulated and be specific as possible. And two, what are your warning signs you're no longer calm? Does your heart race? That's me. Do you stop breathing? Yes, I do. Do your fists clench or does your jaw clench? My jaw clenches. Do you get tunnel vision? Do you get word salad in your head because you want to be calm, but your emotions are trying to have that voice at that moment? That happens to me a lot. Not, I shouldn't say a lot, but it happens. Um, Keep a list of the behaviors that your child displays that trigger you and you're not sure how to handle. These moments are the best way to help yourself, which in turn is going to help your child. So, some examples would be like when your child hits a sibling, when your child tells you they hate you, or when your child refuses to listen. I get that one a little bit more now than I did before. But when we know what's triggering us, we can build a plan of how to respond. Are we going to walk away? Are we going to take some deep breaths to re engage our prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking part of our brain, versus reacting from our emotional place, which is midbrain, where our feelings reside, or our amygdala, where we're going to do a flight or fight type situation? So that leads me into this very thing that I am practicing, and I've been practicing it, I want to say maybe for the last 2 years, and that's rational detachment. I love this term. It's called this is the ability to detach emotionally from a situation and not take what is being said personally. It takes practice when you master that, but when you master this, it has just the most magical moments and experiences for yourself inside. So, part of how I do this rational detachment is that reassuring self talk that I'm saying in my head. Um, and that self talk statement can be, don't take this personally. My child or this individual is not emotionally in control. And the feelings that this person is feeling is temporary, and I need to help. And this is what I do. I do this one actually a little bit more with Jackson, but this feeling is temporary, and I need to help my child feel safe. So if you stop and think about it, if your child is having a high emotional response, they're not in control, and not being in control can be really scary for a kid. And so my goal at that point is for me to say, I don't know what's going on in this emotional state right now, but I'm not going to take it personal and I need to help him. So I lead with that. And also, it's normal to find this situation, to find yourself in stressful situations. And let's be honest, we all find ourselves in stressful situations at work or even sometimes in our personal life. But you can still have that conversation with yourself and say, I'm still in control of my emotions and my reactions. And so that for me is the biggest thing is that rational detachment that I hope out of all of this that I've mentioned, that you take some of that with you, because I think we can all use that more now than I think even 2 years ago. But I just think that that's important that we realize it's hard to be human. And a lot of times people are coming from an emotional place and they're not really thinking. And then let's give them, the benefit of the doubt that they're trying their best to be better human beings. And so let's make it better for them and just, be calm and be present with them while they're going through that. And That's what I have. That's what I have today, Mac.
Oh, that was fantastic, Rebecca. You introduced me to some new terms and tips and strategies I'm going to have to try as well. So I appreciate that. Um, I do have one question before we get into some of the questions that folks on the call might have, and that is, transitioning during this time for folks who are trying to be more conscious of their weight, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
when we transition, we either leave behind unhealthy habits or we can bring them more to the forefront just because we're lacking time. We don't have the same schedule to ensure that we're working out or meal prepping, etc. So, do you have any tips for us regarding how someone could just transition a little bit more smoothly if that's their goal?
Oh, wow. Say that one more time.
It was
Tips
kind of
for,
loaded. Yeah.
yeah.
So, to make it less loaded, if somebody has the goal of weight loss during a transition, what
Oh,
tips and tricks do you have for them so they can tackle that transition in a way that's going to meet their health goals?
yeah. So, um, from what I understand, you guys are just getting ready to wrap up the weight loss challenge, right? So, um, I mean, this is a long stretch for this challenge, and so I know you guys have learned a lot of tips and tricks for the summer, right? But some of the things that I lead with when I'm transitioning, especially right now, is doing some meal prep, writing like for the week. I tend to shop for the week, so I usually make my list, make sure I know what I'm going to cook for myself, and then I do that meal prep. When I get my fruits and vegetables, I wash them and I make sure that they're out on the counter so I can have those ready and available. Um, I think the other thing that Mac kind of enlightened me this morning when we were talking is that I have to be more aware of having breakfast and then maybe packing a protein snack of some kind, like some nuts. Um, that I can just kind of eat on the go, but that I also have a lunch, that I also have those meals that I'm supposed to be having and not like literally eating on the go. Guilty of that for the last couple of weeks. And Mac was just like, Mac, what was that term that you used? That,
Yeah, so we were talking about tapping into your parasympathetic state or your
yeah,
rest and digest mode before eating, and how that can help you digest your food better than if we're in our sympathetic state, which is our flight or fight mode. And by just taking a few deep breaths before we eat, it can really help us digest our food better. So that whole concept of sitting down, looking at your food, appreciating it, giving it thanks, and then stopping to take a few deep breaths can really help us more than we think. And it's a perfect time to give yourself just some time to back to yourself each day. Typically, we're
yeah.
going to eat anyways, right? And so if we can just, even if it's just 5 minutes, it can help us because we tend to overeat if we're, you know, eating at the desk and looking at our computer or TV. There's a study out, this is way back when, where people were given stale popcorn at movie theaters, and they ate just as much as the folks with regular popcorn at a theater. And it showed how people, we just don't pay attention to the taste as much if we're doing something else. So trying not to multitask is important when
Oh,
we're
yeah,
eating.
absolutely. And that I think to also, I think, goes into that emotional place, that rational detachment that we have with our food is to be present with our food, right? And to really, as you said, take a deep breath, know what you're doing before you start making foods for yourself that are healthy and that are
Mhm.
kind to your body. Absolutely. So
Yeah,
that's kind of what I have. But
that's
Mac, you
that's
have some great stuff there too. I love it.
no, I learned so much from you. Does anyone have questions on the call that they would like to ask Rebecca in regards to how they might be able to support their healthy transition a little bit smoother than what it's looking like right now.
No takers. All right.
Well, thank you, everyone. This has been fantastic. If you think of a question, don't hesitate to email us at wellbeing@slhs.org, and we'll be sure to post this recording on our stream channel internally on the Wellbeing team, and then we'll also post externally for Weight Loss Challenge members on our St. Luke's YouTube channel. So thanks for
Hey, Mac.
coming today. Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Sorry,
Yes.
this is Farah. I have a question. Sorry, I was I was actually multitasking.
Okay.
So I I have 5-year-old twins that are speech delayed, and and I'm a single mother and working full time and trying to get them to daycare and everything else is very stressful. But some of like I do recognize some of my triggers, but what are your suggestions to get across to my children? Because there's like I know when I'm starting to feel that, like I can just feel that panicky, and so I tell them like I so the words I use is I'm at my limit. I need you to listen to me. And but they don't understand what I'm trying to say because they're speech delayed. So what do you have any suggestions as to like how to impart to them like I'm ready to blow a gasket.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's Farah, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So without going into any sort of counseling place, but I would reach out to your speech therapist too, because I know when my son had speech therapy, there were things that I was like, what can I do to like really get his attention? But
Mhm,
more, what can I do first to make sure I'm calm? Because when you're not coming from that
mhm,
detached place, it can make it harder, right? To
mhm.
for you to be patient even with them.
Right.
So take care of yourself. Take those deep breaths. Realize that you're being triggered, right?
Mhm,
And then just say, okay, how can I handle this situation? Maybe I can pick up one of my kids and we can just go, hey, I need to talk to you because, it's really how we talk to our kids and how we
not what you
treat them
say.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Mhm,
Um, and just to remember that little eyes are always watching you. Like, how is mom going to handle this? I mean, they're not thinking that, but eventually in the back of their mind, they're like, how's mom going to handle this? Is she going to lose it? Well,
right.
you can show them, no, I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to remain
Mhm,
calm. And whichever one that needs your attention the most, give that to them and see what
mhm.
happens, when you do
Okay.
that.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And also reach out to your speech therapist too, because they might have some tips and tricks for you.
Yep. I'm new here to the area, so I am setting them up with speech therapy.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah. Oh, that was a great question. Great
Yeah.
answer
Yeah.
too. So,
Yeah, thank
um,
you.
yeah. And does anybody else have any questions now that they've maybe had a little bit more time to think of one? We got some
Okay.
great comments in here. So, um, love that. It seems like they all loved your presentation. Um,
Yeah, watch
and
it. I mean, it's a lot of information to throw at you, right? So go back and watch too, because I have also some websites. I think I'll throw in the chat for parents, for people, anyone really, if they're looking for more information. Um, there are some really good websites that I came across that have like deeper bits of knowledge that I think you might want to explore if you like. But I'll post those in the chats as well.
oh yeah. And then it was asked, can you throw those first tips you shared in the comments for us to review? That would be great.
Oh yeah, sure, totally.
Perfect. Yeah. All right, you guys, this has been great. We will post the recordings like I mentioned, and it sounds like you have some information coming in the chat as well. So stay tuned on the chat here in just a little bit for those resources, and we'll see you next month.